Good morning again. I literally just finished doing my last review of a splatter western, and now I'm jumping right into the next one I have sitting there. Got a little pile next to me on a table of reviews to get to and things to write notes for and yada yada. So if I have the moment, again, the Super Bowl is today. It's not for another 2 hours or so. I got plenty of time. But what are we talking about here? We are talking about splatter westerns. The subgenre you didn't know that you needed in your life. This is something that I kind of like stumbled upon by accident. Told the story in more detail in the last video, but essentially I was on eBay looking for something with Death's Head in it regarding to comic books and yada yada, and it turns out that Death's Head is responsible for making these books. So it popped up on the list. I checked it out. I did some research, and I was like, I gotta check these things out more. So I'm slowly picking them up one by one. And I had noticed even on eBay where people were selling some of these things, it was like $2.50, $4. I'm like, what is this stuff? And it turns out, comic books. Everyone loves a comic book every now and again. I myself was a collector many, many moons ago, like in high school and grammar school, whatever else, but no longer. However, when you start hitting a genre or a writer that I'm going to follow, if he makes a comic book too, I'm damn sure to be picking that up. A good example is I have behind me, there's a whole shelf there. And that shelf is full of Andrew Vox. Andrew Vox is a fantastic writer, God bless his soul, and he actually did have some of his work either adapted to comic books or direct to comic books, but mainly he was a novelist. And I picked up those comic books as well, and they're sitting over there on that shelf. And one of these days, I'm going to pick up a hobby, which is like leather binding books, and I'm going to have to find a way to make things like this that are multiple issues into a leather bound edition for my own shelf. And I can't wait until that day comes. Although I did promise myself to get rid of some of my other projects first. So guess what this year is going to be about. So, sorry for all that segueing, but let me get back into this. So what happened here was they created a 4-issue limited series, one-shot books. So you wouldn't have to pick up 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, obviously, if you want to get good stories, definitely do so. But you could pick up number 3, and that's it, and enjoy it. Okay? And not to mention, if you're going to break into a comic book industry, if you're just starting out fresh and put out number 1, people might not know what it is. They might pick up number 1 for like a collector value thing, which was horrible in the 90s, by the way. But if you say something like they did was 1 of 4, 2 of 4, you might say, yeah, you know something? 4 issues. That's nothing. I'll pick them all up as they come around and then get them all. And if they ever come up with a new thing, I'll know if I want to get it or not. So it kind of like entices those potential buyers in by having a small series without an endless, I don't know how long this is going to run type of series. And I'm not sure what the publication periods were for these. It might have been 1 per month for all I know. But I had learned about it, I think the 3rd one had just come out. And I heard the 4th one was coming out in like February. So I was like, you know something? I'll wait for the 4th to come out, pick all 4 up at one time, and read them all at once. And I did. By the time this came in the mail, I think I read them within the next hour. They were done. So, there you go. So, without further ado, let's talk about these stories. And maybe if this is something you enjoy, pick some up for yourself. Borrow them from a friend. Whatever you gotta do. So the first one, and pardon these stickers on them, I haven't moved these to different bags or whatever else, is called The Swallower of Shades. Okay? I'll get a little better look at that. Boom. Alright? And this is one of those be careful what you wish for types of stories. Okay? And another way to put it is, just because you won something off of somebody didn't mean that they didn't want to lose it. Weirdly enough, when I was reading this issue, I actually had to stop reading it about a third of the way through because something wasn't making sense to me. Okay? There was people in the frames that were talking back and forth, or they were talking, but they weren't talking back and forth, and I didn't understand how it worked. And then it was my fault because I didn't catch this at the very beginning. So they actually have the story set up in a bar, and there's a narrator that's going to tell you, oh by God, there's a dude over there. He has the worst luck in the world, but he drinks a lot and he loves to gamble. And there's a guy over there that's got something that he's probably the other guy wants or something like that. So he's narrating almost like a Rod Serling would in a Twilight Zone episode. And the first page is about that. And then on page 2 and 3, on the next pages, it starts telling the story of sitting down, doing the poker. By the way, oh, I lost. This is what you got to know, yada, yada. What I didn't realize was that the narrator stuck around. And as the story continued, there's a murder, and he's the cop, and trying to figure out what's going on, and there's a circus involved, and of course you've got all the freaks, the sideshow kind of people in the circus back then. And while they're investigating the murder and trying to find out what's going on, or trying to find a suspect, the narrator's like leaning up against the wheel of a wagon in scene, and he's making his comments. And someone else is saying something else over here, and these two are bickering or conversating or doing whatever they're doing, and he's over there and he says something. Originally, I thought that they were related to each other, not knowing it was just the narrator giving his color commentary along the way. So, when I finally realized what they were doing, I thought it was pretty awesome. I just was kind of stupid about it. I didn't know what was going on. So, but that's the whole thing. In the meantime, this is a short story regarding a murder based upon what this guy won, like in a poker game. Doesn't know that's the reason why, and then it kind of goes on the rest of it. It was interesting too because when I realized that the narrator wasn't a character, but he was kind of like the voice of the narrator going along throughout the story. It almost reminded me one time when I was in an English class, and I think we were going to read Maya Angelou's Beloved, I think, or Toni Morrison. It was Toni Morrison. I'm flaking again. So they gave us, before we got the book, a little excerpt of like the first couple pages, and I'll tell you what, very few of us figured out that there was an actual ghost in the story originally. We all took different things about it, plus it was only about 7 paragraphs that we read. And when we got through it, it was like, oh, let's discuss. And eventually teacher's like, yeah, there's a total ghost going on here. And you had that, shit, I missed that. But now that I know it, they make a lot more sense, and it will guide you on through. So I kind of had that moment all over again. But Swallower of Shades, decent enough story, and I'm glad it's out in the world. Moving along to the second issue, this one's called The Bone Tribe. And it's another one that cements the genre of the splatter western, of which I'm just learning about again, like I said before. Here's actually, simple setup. They get you in there pretty fast. Again, they only have about 24 pages to do the whole story. But you got 4 men on horseback being chased by the law. And they had just heisted something for a lot of money. One gets shot, not looking too good. You get that whole oh, just leave me. It's like, no, I can't. You gotta come with us, yada yada. So they come upon a mysterious town they didn't know was there. They go in there, and the doctor tends to the wounded man. One guy goes to sleep. One guy goes a whoring, and the fourth guy goes off. I think it's a really good meal or something like that, and maybe starts gambling. So, in the interest of trying to also make this not spoilerish, let's just say things go rather askew, rather fast, and rather wickedly. So, and the good thing about it is, as you're following the individual people, as the whole town starts to turn over, you do get to an ending of it, which gives you full description of what was going on, full description of why it was going on, and why it's going to continue going on, and what's going to happen to these people. So, that's the Bone Tribe. I know this is short and quick, but again, I'm trying to stay away from saying things to get you to actually pick it up, because it's better to come across certain details yourself than to hear them from me first. Okay. Third one on the list. 3 days to death is here. That's pretty much what it means. This one was just good fun. I mean, this put a lot more splatter in the splatter westerns than the other ones did, even though it did have that magical token to it. And magic is a weird word to use, but let's just say supernatural-ish, whatever, token to it. And I love the title. I just really do. And better because it is explained in the story of why it's worded the way it is. Because if you just read it in a vacuum, 3 days to death is here, you're not sure where to put the emphasis, or does it actually, does it work as a sentence on its own? But it makes perfect sense. It totally does. So on this one, as I was going through it and smiling as I was reading it, by the way, literally, I got a nostalgia feeling, because it almost has some of those elements. If you've ever watched Afro Samurai, it's just, here's a thing going on, and there's going to be a bunch of killing. Doesn't matter if it's by guns in this versus swords in Afro Samurai, is you just get your splatter western on pretty quick, and for much of the book too. Okay, the characters are rich, the art's pretty decent, and by far of the four, I call this one my favorite. So if you ever want to check out even just one of these, I say go to issue 3 first. Personal opinion, and I'm not detracting from the others. I love this one. Lastly, we have the new one just released. So if you were to go to maybe like a comic book store that holds these, this is the probably most likely one that you're going to find there, called Resurrection Hill. Okay? Of all the one-shots that are here, this one had the most Twilight Zone feel. Didn't have the narrator in the first one like a Twilight Zone episode would, but just the way the story came about made my mind go in that direction, being like, oh man, this would fit perfectly under that moniker of Twilight Zone as an episode. And I think that may be part and parcel of all the stuff, like I said, because in all these westerns, there's going to be a little bit of supernatural. And obviously sprinkle in a little bit of that gore, the splatter. And that brings it over to the horror genre. Okay. This latest installment it was very interesting to go through it, because they use imagery. There's, I forget if it was a crow or a vulture, but it makes its appearances in the beginning, a little bit in the middle, and definitely at the end. So it shows more of those other elements that are necessary, especially when the person you're following in the book is interacting with the thing. It also did a cool thing where it added elements of that gunfight in the middle of the street, maybe that draw at noon or whatever else, elements that you hadn't seen before, elements of the other people like hanging out in front of the storefronts that you never really see except for people just gasping and women with white gloves putting it on their mouths or whatever else. Oh my God, my stars and garters. No, this actually added an element of them with the showdown, which was great to see as well. This story certainly deserved a home among this series. Okay, so in conclusion, I will say that these splatter westerns are my new favorite toy. All right. Like I said, I grabbed all 4 of these at one time. I got it on eBay. I was looking for a person that was selling all 4 and not just partial, so I get like 2 from him, 1 from him, and 1 from a third dude. Guy had all 4, bought all 4, and was very happy for it. one good thing. Nope, my notes there don't make any sense. So I'll just keep going. All right. On that note, I am done here. So hopefully this might have helped you out. Hopefully you'll go out checking out these as well, because the more people who check them out, the more possibility that more will be created. And that's what I want to see at this moment. So take care. Happy reading. Bye-bye.